Hey y'all, welcome back to our reading of Melissa G. Moore's Shattered Silence, and hopefully we'll get it done today, guys, because I have been anticipating finishing this book for quite some time now. We have a few more chapters left, so hopefully we'll get done with it today. Be sure you guys are subscribed, be sure to like the video and comment down below what you've liked or if you've noticed anything that I haven't noticed within reading this book. But we're just going to kind of get to it today so we can get this through and over with. We are on chapter 38 and it's called The Awakening. Our first home together as a newly married couple was a townhouse in South Hill neighborhood of Spokane. Sam had heard from a friend in his geography class that there was a place for rent. It was only $400 per month, including utilities. We were expecting our first child and needed an affordable place right away. Sam thought this would be perfect fit for our new little family. $400 with utilities included. Oh, how I wish that was still true. When I first saw the rundown townhouse, I was disappointed in the orange walls and rough wood floors. Underneath the chipped paint and flooring, however, was a charming old world look that could be brought back with some paint and sanding. I asked the landlady for permission to paint the walls and she agreed. Sam and I signed the lease and moved in right away. The neighborhood was fantastic. We were surrounded by colorful, historic craftsmen and Victorian homes. A few blocks away was Manito Park, where Sam had proposed to me. The whole feel of South Hill was casual yet sophisticated. I wanted our home to match the feel of our neighborhood, so we started working on it right away. Sam stained the hardwood floors and transferred the orange walls to warm and elegant beige. Our home felt welcoming, even without much furniture. Everything we had was from Sam's bachelor days. This included an old Southwestern-style couch and black leather recliner. Sam's grandmother had given us her old box television, and his mother donated to us her old green craft table for our dining room. There was a small room that fit our new baby's crib perfectly, along with a small dresser. Both were gifts from Linda, Sam's mother. We were anxious to welcome our new little angel Aspen into our lives. While Sam was finishing his class load for graduation, he worked part-time in the evenings unloading trucks for UPS. Every evening, he would leave around 10 p.m. and come home around 3:30 in the morning. With Sam gone at night, I felt uneasy and slightly paranoid about my safety. Ever since the night Robert had kicked down our steel front door, I was fearful of an occurrence like that happening again with a stranger. Every sound in the night would wake me up. I didn't realize I had post-traumatic stress disorder. Self-diagnosing? Cool. The months flew by as Sam finished college and graduated with his degree in international affairs. Before long, we welcomed little Aspen into our arms. She was beautiful with her tiny fingers and toes. Sam took some time off to be home with me and our new infant. I was able to stay home with Aspen, and I loved watching her take her first bath, then later her first steps. Life was changing every day for our little family, and I enjoyed every moment of it. Several months after the birth of our baby girl, I became increasingly aware of the vast difference in my religion and my husband's. Sam had converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the age of 4 when his parents were baptized in 1979. 2 missionaries had appeared at the door in Alaska, and his parents had felt prompted to investigate the church. My pride was now preventing me from seeing the faith of Sam's family from a new perspective. All I could see was the pain of their disapproval for our new marriage. I had little to no understanding about what my husband's family felt he was risking by marrying me. I had just begun to see what a treasure of a man I had married. Sam was cultured and well-trained from his Portugal mission. Without any knowledge of the faith of my husband's family, I had taken their disapproval of our marriage quite professionally. I had felt rejected for something I could not understand, and the pain of the rejection caused me to put up a defensive wall against his family. All of their requests to help me investigate the church were ignored due to my frustration and hurt. My mother-in-law, Linda, had put pressure on us to have our newborn baby blessed in the Mormon faith. I quickly rejected her idea in fear that it was the Catholic way of claiming the baby as a member of the faith. This was very hard on Sam's family, and there were a lot of tears and strife. I had been brought up in Catholicism, but as an adult. Catholicism. Is that a thing? I don't know. I felt locked in an epic struggle for faith, for truth. My childhood religion had appeared too complex and too formal, and all the other churches I had attended in years later seemed to preach vastly different beliefs. The more I investigated other churches, the more confused I felt. Why are you, like, investigating churches? Like, I don't know if this is just like a word jumble thing, but why are you investigating churches? There's no investigation. You either believe what they preach or you don't. When my daughter was almost a year old, we were out for our morning walk in Montejo Park. We passed two missionaries who appeared friendly and greeted us cheerfully. It occurred to me that I had been very prideful and had not given the Mormon church a chance. My heart knew that it was only right to at least learn as much about my husband's religion as I had other religions. When Sam got home from work, I told him about my conversation with the missionaries, and was surprised to find that he was not as happy as I thought he would be. Sam had always been a strong member of his church until a few years ago, before he met me, when he had a disagreement with the local church leader and another member. Sam was actually shocked to learn that I wanted to know more about the church. He let me know that if I was serious, I would have to let go of my occasional Corona and morning cup of Joe. Really? He also told me flat out that he was not ready to go back. He did agree, however, to sit in on what the missionaries called discussions or lessons, and he would often join in animatedly. He would also join in animatedly. I realized that this wonderful man of mine had very strong spiritual side, and I also realized he had never lost the testimony of his faith. While admirable, Sam's faith wasn't enough for me to make any major decisions, especially because I was having a hard time with some of the principles. After several lessons, I was about to give up the idea of having any discussions. The missionaries invited Sam and me to study some scriptures and then to pray. I honestly had not prayed much since I had met Sam. Our life had seemed so stable that I didn't really think I needed to pray. Now that I had something important to pray for, I was fearful that God would not answer my prayer. There was still a frightened little girl inside of me who was afraid of being abandoned again, afraid of feeling like God didn't know that I existed, or that he would judge me as unworthy of his love or his answers. Humbly, I remembered that little girl who had pleaded with God to be with me when my father was jailed for murder. Looking back, I saw that each of my prayers were answered in some form or another. As an older child, I had pictured God with my own father's characteristics, which obviously led to a twisted spiritual mentality. I was relearning about God and the peace and unconditional love that I remembered floating through me and causing sweet tears to escape my eyes. Never before in my life had I cried in joy. Those joyful tears spread when I was baptized into the Mormon church. I felt my body being cleansed from all the horrible situations I had faced at a young age. I was clean and felt reborn, brand new. My joy was only added to when I found out that my best girlfriend, Tanya, had also been baptized. She had moved out of state with her husband, Mark. Unbeknownst to each other, we had been baptized on the same day. I knew there were no accidents, and I thought how beautiful it was that Tanya and I could now share this important part of our lives together too. At this point, I believed that my transformation was complete. However, the one who had guided me and protected me so often seemed to have additional plans for me. So she was baptized as being Mormon. Gotcha. Now I know that. Now I see the issues. Just kidding. No hate to Mormon faith. But I I do believe that's part of her issue today. I think that she still has this mentality of that she wants to be this woman of faith, but she also wants to be famous, and that doesn't go together in the least, in my opinion. Chapter 39, The Shattering. Sounds violent. There was also a dark and lonely place in my heart from my past traumatic experiences. I had come to terms with the fact that I would always have to carry the heavy burdens of shame, guilt, and insecurity. Even though the people around me were not free from such emotions, somehow I felt inferior because of my great secret, my father's identity. I felt that if the people I associated with really knew my past, they would deny their support, their care, and their love. Since joining this new church, it was becoming more difficult to maintain my friendships without giving any detailed information about my parents or childhood. I only let them see me as the good friend, the volunteer, who helped with the children's classes at church, and now, with the birth of our son, Jake, the loving mother of 2 children. No one knew I was the daughter of a serial killer. In the early spring of 2008, Aspen was in 1st grade. One day she came bouncing up the driveway from school and gave me a huge hug. Since I was running a daycare in my home, I was watching the children play. Aspen chatted about the things they had talked about in school that day. Then she moved to stand directly in front of me so my focus would be on her. "Mommy, where is your daddy?" My 7-year-old daughter asked me, her eyes full of open curiosity. "Everybody had a daddy. You have to have a daddy too, don't you?" The question caught me off guard, and I was not prepared to deal with it. I was not expecting my 7-year-old to be curious about extended family members, especially ones she never saw. "He's in Salem, Oregon," I said quickly. Then I waited to see if she would ask another question to drop the subject. To my relief, she was satisfied, and with the answer ran off to play. Her question struck a deep pain inside me, and I realized that one day it would be necessary for my children to know the truth about their grandfather. How would I tell them? I knew that his actions would be a blemish on our family tree forever. And when it was time for them to ask those questions, what if they wanted to have a relationship with their grandfather? Was it healthy? Would I allow it? Would I oppose it? What if my father pursued it himself? I didn't know the answers. I had never been to therapy for any of the experiences I survived as a child. I was unsure about my own relationship with my father. I realized that I was going to need to know sooner rather than later, so I started to do some research, becoming determined to find whatever resources were out there. Programs, support groups, self-help books. In the past, I had acquired a talent for seeking out material on subjects that I knew little about. The more I learned, the more empowered I felt. Sounds like a lot of people. You're not the only one, Melissa. This time, however, when I searched for materials on this subject, there were none to be found. While there were plenty of resources for victims of crime, there didn't appear to be any kind of resources for those whose loved ones had committed heinous crimes. I would have to figure this one out myself. Well, of course, Melissa. There's not, because you should just go to therapy for that, including your children. There was no way I would allow my lack of knowledge to impact my children. I was afraid that if I did not handle this issue correctly, it would actually harm my children in the long run. Based on personal experience, I knew what kind of effects inappropriate information could have on a child. My father consistently talked about subjects that most adults would blush at. In some ways, my innocence was stolen. I did not want to have that happen to my children. I also refused to leave them in the dark. That had been another problem with how I was raised. There were many times when no one spoke at all. After looking for a week, I decided to write into the Dr. Phil show. I had come to respect Dr. Phil's opinion, and he seemed to line up with me as far as my beliefs on common sense. We also both had strong opinions on the well-being of children. I realized that if I was way off base on this one, the man to set me straight would be Dr. Phil. I organized a query and sent it off, not knowing as I did so that my life was about to change forever. So it's strange to me that in searching for these answers, that you choose to live a private life, but then choose to reach out to Dr. Phil, who has a show, instead of reaching out to just a therapist in your area that can help with PTSD and also guide you in the struggles that you're having with explaining these situations to your children. Of course, in my opinion, but what do I know? I received answers the next day asking for more information. I wrote about how I was concerned for the mental and emotional health of my children and how I did not want a relationship with my father, a serial killer, to impact their lives in a negative way. Over the next few weeks, I was asked specific details of my life, and then came the request to make video diary of my questions for Dr. Phil. While I was responding to the assignments, I began to be fearful of exposing the truth about my father's identity to the public. Everyone in my surrounding community, schools, churches, neighborhood, and so forth only knew about me, my choices, and my faith. They made judgments based on my lifestyle, not knowing about my father. I did not want that to change. It was a huge secret, one that I had told only to my most intimate friends and family. It was hardly spoken of, and I often felt ashamed of my father. Ever since I was a teen, I had worried that people would judge me based on his actions rather than mine, perhaps before they even got to know me. I was ashamed to have anything to do with him. Okay. But again, you go to Dr. Phil to sort this out. You go to the producers to give this information to, but you don't want to give that information to people that you're close to. It just doesn't make sense, in my opinion. Before I knew it, the Dr. Phil show had invited me to come out to film a get real retreat with 13 other participants from varied walks of life who had their own issues and circumstances to work through. We would enter an intense retreat environment at the Dr. Phil house to come to grips with our deepest fears and our sickest secrets, and to assist each other in bringing them to light. I was excited because I knew I would also be learning some useful tools for my relationships to take home. Agreeing to participate in the experience was one of the scariest things I had ever done, and part of my fear was because this would mean revealing family dynamics on public television. For a family that didn't say a word to each other on the day my father was jailed for murder, and who then expected everyone to get up and go to school the next day like normal, this was a huge risk. I wasn't sure how many of my family and friends would stick by me once this was out in the open. My mother, though she signed the release papers, was petrified. My brother and sister were completely supportive but wary of the media. They didn't want me to get hurt. My loving husband was prepared to go the distance with me, whatever that took. So again, it's like you're choosing to exploit the rest of your family because you want help, but yet you choose to have help on public television. Please explain to me how that makes sense. As I prepared to catch a flight to the Dr. Phil studios on Father's Day weekend, 2008, I knew the Get Real retreat would require intensive homework, taking risks, being conscious, and stepping up for myself and for the other participants. It was fun traveling to LA, but I already felt lonely. I was used to having children with me 24/7 and a husband that liked hanging out with me. When we met the other participants, it was interesting to see the plethora of backgrounds and issues they had selected to showcase. Alcoholism, rape, domestic violence, racism, serial killing, suicide, lack of intimacy, too much intimacy, and so much more. When Dr. Phil learned about my background, he told me that I got a shitty deal. He helped me realize that I had been taking on the blame, shame, and guilt that my father should have taken on his own. Dr. Phil told me it was necessary for me to separate my father's crimes from my life, and that there was nothing that I should feel ashamed about. It sounded very simple, but his words weren't very deep. Fears, remorse, shame, guilt. I had been carrying all those things around since I was a child and didn't even know that I had the choice to get rid of it. I came away from the show feeling confident in my own choices and aware of the separation between my father and me. He could not control me any longer. As for my mother, she had made some poor choices that had ended up hurting me and my siblings, but now she and I could work on our relationship. Because of the show, I was also able to see her very loving side. Before I kept silent, never expressing how I felt, her fear for fear she would reject me. Dr. Phil's Get Real retreat opened the awareness that allowed me to shatter the silence, break open the secrets, and find sanity. Okay, so being on TV solved all your problems. Got it. So, you think being on TV is still going to solve all your problems? Not going to happen. Of course, that's all my opinion, but let's get on. We have 2 more chapters here. Chapter 40, Aftermath. 4 weeks and 7 months after the Dr. Phil Get Real retreat, I felt like I was in a time warp. It seemed to me that time had stopped long enough for me to really taste life for the first time. Like a veil of fog had been lifted from me, I was centered on the moment and felt very conscious and alive. It felt almost strange that everyone else's lives around me just continued as they had before, when there was suddenly so much color, emotion, and vitality all around me. It was as if I had woken from black and white dream. I wanted others to share it with me, to express what I had. This reawakening to the richness of my life. Isn't it weird that this is like the 3rd time that she's reawakened? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being sarcastic. I don't know. Or judgy. I don't know. My opinion. There was also the other end of the spectrum, the thoughts, feelings, and emotions I had covered up for years that now made their debut with great force at certain times. Once I allowed myself to venture out from the safety of my emotional numbness I had used for survival, I got to taste both the ups and downs of daily life and memories. There were full days and weeks that I spent immersed in intense joy and gratitude. Then there were other days that the fixed beliefs I had carried about myself, others for so long, stared me right in the face. Sometimes they were ugly. I didn't want to stare back. More than ever, though, I began to find the fortitude to work through it. It was like I had emerged from the travels down the rabbit hole and I would never see life the same way again. Hitting some of those highs meant I had to hit some of the lows too. And layer by layer, more and more issues were brought into light. In the process of writing this book, my co-author and I made a trip to Yakima area where I had grown up before my parents divorced. While there, I was flooded with childhood thoughts and feelings. When I had experienced them for the first time, they had been so nightmarish that I never thought I would survive to face them again. Letting myself feel them and work through them as an adult in a safe environment allowed me to look at them more objectively and with higher perspective. I came to see why I had developed certain behaviors and beliefs about myself and the world around me. A major example of this was the belief that had affected my everyday life since I was a freshman in high school. I believed that people would always judge me for my father's actions and that they would automatically assume that I was a cruel person just because I was the happy-faced killer's child. I was terrified of people finding out who my father was, since I believed they would never get to know me for who I really was inside. I finally came to grips with the fact that people only knew what they've been told. We are all products of our belief system, our upbringings, and our socialization. Sometimes we are gifted with the absolute miracle of life and perception changing experience. For me, one of these experiences was attending my therapeutic retreat and all that followed. But I believe we are all gifted with those experiences a few times in our lives if we choose to have them. I watched my new friends from Dr. Phil retreat experience the same kind of belief-shattering moments. I saw that the miracle it would be. And also remember that she she was in this retreat with a lot of people. I don't know exactly who, but seems like there was a lot of criminals as well. So it's kind of weird to me that that's happening. And I don't know, it's kind of weird that she's still talking to them too. But it seems like an ongoing therapy, and it makes me question, like, does Dr. Phil charge for that? I don't know. Whether they were or not, I believe that neither of my parents felt wrapped in the arms of love. Their childhoods and their choices in adulthood have shown me that neither of them believed they were worthy of truly loving relationship. I do not believe it was their intention to live a love of a life of scarcity love scarcity, but it was a natural course of things because of the choices they made based on their beliefs. I became aware that my father had a lot of influence in my development and my thought pattern. Now that I am older and wiser, I have the right and duty to myself to question where I get a belief in case it came from an unrelated source. What a relief to give myself permission to do that. I'm learning little by little to trust more in that spirit and that assisted me in making choices when I was a child, into my teens, and now in adulthood. The more I trust my feelings, intuition, and the prompts that spirit gives me, the better my choices are, and the more those choices are founded in beliefs of love. Because of my father's callous comments, one belief I've worked to shed was my perception of my body as an object. For me, this belief affected the way I treated my body, particularly regarding food. Like many women, I have struggled with body perception issues. It is so easy to do this in our culture of hype airbrush models and the plethora of diet pills and magazines we see every day on television and in grocery store checkout lines. In addition to that, I had learned that I was seeking comfort from food and not people. Where people had turned away from me in times of great stress and trauma, food always provided comfort in stressful moments. However, this created a vicious cycle for me that didn't work. It took me quite a bit of time to see the correlation between stress and maybe behaviors of survival. So not only that, it doesn't just stem from her father. You also remember that she was in a home that didn't provide adequate food for a very long time. So that has a lot to do with it too, and I think she's not acknowledging that. But even more weird to me is that she says, like, where does she say the spirits and the prompting that the spirit gives me. It's kind of weird that she's talking in this fashion and she is a baptized Mormon now. I don't know, maybe that's just me again. I don't know. Before, I didn't want to acknowledge that I was bringing and certain that I was binging, and certainly did not know I binged in stressful moments. I did not see a relationship between how I treated food and my emotions. As I began to face the fears I had lived with for years, I realized I had made a friend and an enemy of food. I'd attached energy and emotion to it and had created an unhealthy relationship. Sorting out my past issues, experiences, and behaviors, I helped me to overcome this belief and these behaviors. I now find so much more joy in people than I do in food. By being able to relinquish my fear of their love and acceptance by simply loving them no matter what. I have come to truly cherish and enjoy people. I may not always agree with what they say or do, but I love them for who they are. Family, church, and work get-togethers are filled with people now, and the food is just icing on what the true delicious cake really is. I never realized how starved I was for one of the most vital parts of life, human connection. Now I feast on it and the lessons and sharings that come with it. As I do, I become more and more content. What a wonderful way to live. Perhaps one of the hardest false beliefs I faced was my previous and erroneous thought that I had a father who was capable of remorse and who would never harm me. This belief was shattered when my grandpa Roy confided to me that at one point my dad admitted to seriously considering murdering all of his children and then committing suicide so that we wouldn't have to face the inevitable anger, shame, and humiliation that would come. This disclosure rocked me to the core, the realization of it affecting me for weeks. When I could begin to get past the shock and fear of it, however, light began to dawn on the many times that I had been protected from my father's psychotic thoughts. I couldn't help but remember the day at breakfast when I now realized he was thinking of telling me everything and would have had to kill me if I had second thoughts about turning himself in. After I read the book, I realized that my father straddled that line for years and that he ended up killing any woman he told about his past. Sometimes, and she doesn't really know that. Sometimes I don't know why I'm alive, and that is a thought that used to slowly drive me crazy. My compassion for my father's victims and also for the families who had lost them tortured me. I started having more dreams about them and sometimes woke up wishing it was me instead of them. I finally had to realize that I was claiming responsibility for my father's actions again. I wanted to live, and so did those women. He spared me my life, perhaps by a hair, and while I was forever grateful, I am forever haunted as well. I don't have to let it get to me, but I do get I but I do get to make my own contribution to the world. I can never make up for my father's monstrous actions ever, and finally I realized it is not my responsibility to do so. Still, I know very clearly that because of what I have been through, it is my passion and my purpose to inspire, motivate, and above all, protect women and children whenever I am able. As long as it makes me be in the public eye. Again, my opinion. I reveled in this new knowing. While I had absolutely no control over how my parents treated me and how they felt about me, I suddenly realized that I could control one very important thing: how I responded or reacted. I was in charge of how I let them affect me. I could create the love I was seeking for myself, and with God's help, it was all right within me. I felt reborn. Felt reborn yet again. Again, we're gonna feel reborn. Completely reborn. Chapter 41, the last chapter, Enlightenment. Sometime later, Sam and I settled in for a talk together, and at the end of the day, the kids were asleep and peaceful air had descended on the house. My husband reminded me that a letter had arrived for me earlier in the day from my father. I had set it aside as I often did, allowing Sam to read it to me first to see if there was anything of merit or value in it. Sometimes there was, many times there was not. Only the anger tantrums of a frustrated man who was no longer in control of his life or that of others. I sighed, the peaceful feeling already broken. Go ahead, I said, not bothering to appear nonchalant. Sam knew me so well. I don't try to hide feelings from him any longer. Not that it ever worked anyway. He made his way across the room and snatched the letter from the mantel. He opened it, scanned it carefully. I could tell some of the material must have been disturbing. He kept reading further and turning the pages back and forth, as if searching for something. Then I realized he was searching for a way to tell me what was in the letter without being hurtful. Apparently, there was no way to do that. Actually, he's saying that if he gets the death penalty, it will be all your fault, Sam said grimly. I started to laugh. It was ridiculous. It was ludicrous, and it was liberating to see how absolutely ludicrous it really was. It was ludicrous, and it was liberating to see how... Oh, okay, don't make sense, but whatever. He says that because he read your article in the Seattle Times and you called him sick and don't want anything more to do with him. Then that's it. He won't write you anymore. He said to hell with everything. He's given all the details to the writer on one of the murders, and the particular information may incriminate him deeply. He'll likely get the chair, or whatever it is, wherever that particular state's penalties are. I thought about my father's words and insinuations, and I got it. I finally got it. I did not invite any street women, transients, girlfriends, or others into my space and strangle them. I did not write letters admitting my guilt and then send them to newspapers to torture victims' families. I did not revel in anyone else's suffering. I was not my father. A part of him was in me, but I had created a different life than his. And while I had certainly made mistakes and had my own regrets, I finally realized some important things. He showed me one side, but because of who I am, I made another choice. He played in darkness. I chose to surround myself in and grow in light and love. He chose to take away the rights of others and wanted to use guilt and manipulation to get me and anyone he would listen to that listened to him to do what he wanted them to do. I chose to honor myself and honor others. I thought about the word I had learned in yoga class, namaste. It had the most powerful, beautiful meaning I had ever heard. The divine in my celebrates and honors the divine in you. This includes honoring the things within my Father that he himself cannot recognize. I thought about the 1.5 million people currently in our prisons. Every one of them is a father, a mother, a brother, or a sister, a son or a daughter, or someone else. I know that what my father did is more heinous than what many have done, but nonetheless, family members can suffer greatly when someone they love goes to prison. How many of them secretly carry the shame and guilt of what their loved ones have done? How many of those family members have felt helpless and hopeless? How many have felt guilty because they truly love that person, but not what that person has done? How many dare not shine because of what their loved one has done? I tried to get a handle on the sheer number of people that must be affected by the same problem. I knew my father's cruelty had personally affected several people in his family. I could name at least 50 people directly affected by my father's actions, and many more who had been affected indirectly. I began to calculate the number of people nationwide that must be affected by loved ones in prison. It was staggering to me the amount of shame and grief that must be out there. This is why I have chosen not to be silent. I want to bring an awareness of the plight of many people who, like me, do not know what to do when a person they love dearly chooses any harmful behavior, whether immoral, unethical, or in any case deadly. In Dad's last letter, he wrote, when asked, "Are you the daughter of Keith Jesperson, the killer?" Tell them you are Melissa Moore, not the daughter of a killer, just a woman that minds her own business. Or simply, no, and walk away, my best advice. This from the man who had, if he was executed, it would be my fault. What I have learned is that I am not here to please everyone, which is an impossible task anyway. I choose to share my intensely personal experiences to bring greater understanding that we can overcome abuse and live rich and joyful lives. Rich being the word there, huh? There was a time when I was convinced that there was no solution for the profound suffering I had gone through. I had the remarkable opportunity to learn otherwise, and now I want to dispel the myth that our past mistreatment, abuse, or trauma has to remain and predetermine our future happiness. I am sure to let my light shine for the countless who have not seen a light in the secret, innermost darkness within themselves. There are some lines by Marianne Wilson often quoted because they ring with such truth. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I think it's so funny that she preaches all of this stuff, but yet she assisted a woman that plotted and killed her mom for over 2 years. It still just astounds me. History has always been written by the victors. Victors were the ones who destroyed the enemy and had the power and resources to write the history books. That time is changing as humans become more compassionate and refuse to be ignorant. Look at how our society has now recognized the Holocaust, Darfur, Serbia, and so many other horrendous situations. In order to keep atrocities from happening, we must learn from them. It begins with someone having enough courage to shatter the silence and provide education into the darkest side of man, the side that we are all capable of. Once we acknowledge it and refuse to sweep it under the carpet again, then we have eyes to see it in the light of day. This is humanity's massive step toward change, and we must all contribute to the forward movement of the journey. That is when humanity will not be able to claim itself as victor, but as absolutely victorious over its worst enemy, the darkness within itself. While my father was a conqueror in the old regimen of might makes right, I am rewriting history. It may not be the history of the world, yet I go forth conquering in a very different realm than survival of the fittest. That era is ending, and I believe that the more we open to it, the faster a new era will come. Healing, temperance, tolerance, charity, love, joy. These are the trophies of a new world. This sounds like Scientology. Like many others, I grew up in the belief that we are to be forgiving of others' trespasses. I used to assume that must accept family members' behavior regardless of the violating act. Now I know that forgiving and forgetting are not the same thing. We can forgive by moving forward with our lives, but we don't have to continue to live with abusive actions. To my father, playing the good little girl means to mind my own business. I have grown up. I am minding my own business. To do that now means to take care of myself, to take precious care of the loved ones God has given me, to watch over and protect. Continuing in shame, secrecy, and victimhood would not serve my children, nor be the example I deserve to set. Therefore, I am the mother who has shattered her own silence, and I, a victim no longer. I live in the light. I am victorious. Sure, you're very victorious. So there's this other one. It says like blossoming branches, and there's different things, and she has like this list of like, listen to your intuition, shatter your silence, be a breaker. Yeah, no. So I want to let you guys know that M. Bridget Cook is the other person that helped her write this. I also learned from her ex-husband Sam that she talks about at the end of this book. He helped pay for this book. So thanks to ex-husband Sam. Here's a photo history. This is Melissa, first day of kindergarten. And this is, it says, sitting on the couch are my great-grandma Bellamy holding me on her lap, my grandmother Gladys, and my father holding Jason. I'm about 3 years old here. That's this picture on the top. My dad as a young man. An orchard near our trailer in Yakima. I walk through this orchard every day to reach the school bus. So remember her talking about that. My second elementary school, the one I was attending when my school bus caught on fire. Our house in Nordine Street, just 2 doors down from my grandmother's house. When we moved there, I was thrilled that we had a place of our own and excited to have a real bedroom again. And then my dad and Jason during one of Dad's visits. This is during the time that he was visiting. Our home in Lynchfield Street, it was the roomiest home we ever had. Dad bought us a trampoline for the backyard, and for the first time our house was a cool place to play. And then on the bottom is their Habitat for Humanity house that they got. Here I am in front of Tanya's card that she got around her 18th birthday. It represents freedom for both of us. Later, when she got another card, Tanya gave this one to me. Wow. Tanya gave it to her. Tanya and me on the suspension bridge at Bowl and Pitcher in Riverside State Park near Spokane, Washington. So there's her friend Tanya. Me and Sam on our wedding day at Hobart Mansion in Spokane. So there's the guy you could thank for the book. At my wedding, my grandfather walked me down the aisle. He stood in where my father would have been. And then this is Aspen and me. After my children were born, I began to think about life differently. And in 2005, Sam and I took our children to visit their grandfather in the Salem Penitentiary. This was the last time I saw him. So you guys have to remember when her daughter was asking, she decided to have them go visit. This is while she was going through her journey of healing. Interesting, right? In this photo, I'm standing outside a restaurant where my parents first met. My dad came in to get a burger, but my mom forgot to put a hamburger in his bun. I came to visit as part of research for the book. But we never hear about it, huh? Interesting. Me and Sam with our children, Aspen and Jake, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. This is a special place for our family. And we're done, guys. We're done with Shattered Silence by Melissa G. Moore. What did you guys think? I have got to say that when she did this book, I feel like she had the best intentions for it. I believe that the first portion of this book was very hard to get through. The book obviously was very hard to get through. It took me a while. But I do believe also, like, after she wrote this book and she left her husband that helped her and assisted her in writing the book and telling her truth or whatever, I think that she lost herself many times along the way, including her trying to get, you know, like a convicted murder. I think that she could have went a certain way, but when she started doing stuff with Gypsy Rose Blanchard, that just changed everything. And it kind of astounds me that she doesn't realize that she's getting manipulated by her as well, considering that she's put in so much work to change herself. You know what I mean? But again, a lot of this is my opinions. A lot of this has to do because I also did read Gypsy Rose Blanchard's book, and Melissa G. Moore is also a ghostwriter on there. So there are similarities in the stories. They have a lot of different things that are the same. And I never knew that Melissa G. Moore was a Mormon. I don't know if she still is a practicing Mormon, but it's very interesting to know that, considering where her life and the path that she's taken thus far in her life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. We are going to take a break from Trippy Book Club for a little bit because I have a lot on my plate, including my podcast, which I just dropped today, a brand new updates episode. So check it out, Blurred Lines, Crime, Conspiracy, and the Truth Behind the Gossip. And I also have a deep dive coming tomorrow as well. And I'm going to actually start working on showcasing the victims of Keith Jesperson, showcasing Keith Jesperson, and doing all that deep dives that I promised in the beginning. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. I hope you guys are able to watch this all in the entirety, and I'm so sorry for any delays that happened, but I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Till next time.